Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Learn Linux with Peers program by Dario Vakas, which is the fourth edition of our Learn with Peers program. In this edition, we'll be talking about Linux. We'll start Linux from the basic and try to get ourselves familiar with Linux operating system. So, as we all know, this training is for 50 students. 50 of you were selected to participate in this training. So if you are here, I want to say congratulations to you for being part of this training. And kindly make sure you participate fully in the training sessions so as to make sure you fulfill all the requirements for the certificate. So we'll just get started. And this today will be in the introduction. So we'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So for those of us that have been following us for a while, you know what the Vaka is. But if you are just joining us for the first time, the of Hackers is a community that aims to bring together cybersecurity students and enthusiasts to train us from a professional perspective. So it's just a community that brings together security enthusiasts, students, and professionals so we can learn and get better. So going straight into this session, we'll be talking about Linux. So the outline will be following. We'll be talking about the Linux file system. Under this, we'll be talking about how the Linux file system is structured, the basic building blocks of the system, some important files we need to know, and everything about the Linux file system. Then we'll move quickly to the terminal, or you call it the shell. We'll talk about the Linux terminal. We'll talk about how to open up the terminal, how to run commands, and we know that throughout most of this session, we'll be spending a lot of time on the terminal. So we get ourselves familiar with the terminal, then we'll spend almost the rest of the session working on the terminal. Then we'll move to how to navigate the file system, how to create files, how to change from one directory to another, how to copy files, move files, how to work around the file system. We'll look at that. We'll look at some commands, tip and tricks, some shortcuts you can use in the terminal. Then we'll go ahead to talk about file permissions and management. Like if you say a file and a file has read access or read write access or read write execute access. So we'll talk about files, we'll talk about their permissions, we'll talk about how to manage files. Then we'll also move and talk about users and groups management, how to create users, how to remove users, how to add users to groups, how to we'll look at group permissions, users permission, and some other things. Then we'll talk about service management and tools installation. So this is just an overview of what we'll be looking at. So as we continue with the session, we'll break them down into more detailed session and we'll look at them as a unit. So before we get started for today's session, if you have anything, like you have any question, can you drop it in the chat so I will reply to it. So we'll start with today is day one, so we are going to start right away. And I don't know if I'm the only one excited to start this, but I'm super excited to start this session. So let's just get started. The first thing talking about is the Linux file system. One would say a file system is just a logical collection of files on a partition or disk. So you have files that are on a partition or disk and they are arranged logically. That's what a file system is, how files are arranged on a partition in a logical order. Then the Linux operating system uses a hierarchical file system structure, which is like an upside down tree. To explain this better, just picture the normal tree you have in a physical world. You have a tree, the root is in the ground, and you have the branches, they are up on the tree. So in let's say you then go ahead to uproot the tree and turn it upside down. That means the roots of the tree, which is the base, will be at the top and the branches will be below it. So that's how the Linux system is structured. The roots, which is the base of the file system, is at the top, and the branches, every other folder, every other files stem out from it. So it's like an upside down tree. That's how the file system is structured. We are going to look at the diagram to explain it better. Then one thing to note as we continue in this session is that in Linux everything is a file. What we mean by that is in Linux the directories, the your any device you plug everything in Linux is generally is a file. So everything in Linux is a file. Keep that in mind, and we are going to be needing it as we proceed in this session. So now, if you remember when I said the file system is like an upside down tree, so we are going to use this diagram to explain it. If you check the diagram, we have the root, which is a forward slash. It is the base of the file system, and that's where everything starts. So the forward slash here, sorry, the forward slash is the base of the file system, and that's where every other thing stems out. Then we have some important directories we are going to talk about. So moving on, we know everything stems out from the root directory, and we know that can see this bin directory too, which stems out from the root directory. So the bin is the directory that holds binary files. The bin, so the bin, all binary files needed for the boot process are stored in the bin folder. So that's the folder or directory that holds all binary files needed to run. Then you have the boot folder, which contains the boot information of the system. Then you have the dev, which is the directory for devices. The dev contains device files and all other hardware devices on the system. The boot old files during the boot process. And moving on, we have the etc directory, which is a directory used by application subsystems such as databases, Oracle, and just any application subsystem can use that directory. Then we have the home directory. Now, the home directory is where we'll be spending most of the time. The home directory is directory that contains the home account for each user. So let's say on your system you have a user with the username tests. So in the home directory you have home/test, which will be the home directory for the test user. So the home directory is the directory that holds all users' accounts. Then the lib directory is the directory for shared libraries. The media directory stores media information like the USB connects to the system is loaded as the media directory. We have the MNT directory, which is mounts, and the directory is the typical mount point for the user mountable devices such as the floppy drives and CD-ROM. So anything you can mount to the system, sometimes things like SMB share that you can mount to the system can be found in the MNT directory, which is short for mounts. Then the OPT directory, I like to call it optional. It's a directory you can put basically anything you want there. You can just store your files there. Now moving on, we have the root directory. Now this root directory we have here is not the same thing as the forward slash we have here. The forward slash here, it is the root of the file system itself. That's like the base of the file system. But the slash root we have here is the home directory for the root account. So take note of the difference between the two. The forward slash, just the forward slash is the base of the file system itself. That's like the beginning of the file system. But the slash root is the home directory for the root user. Then moving on, we have the sbin. The sbin is also a directory that contains binary information, but the commands in that directory is used by a super user for system administrative functions. So similar to the bin directory we have here, the sbin also holds binary files but contains commands used by super users. for system administrative functions. Then the SRV, it's a folder that houses service files, services like your www, the FTP, SMB. It's just a folder, a directory that houses service file. On most Linux system, I don't think this file is common, but on operating systems like Red Hat Linux, you have the SRV folder, which is the service file. It's just to house services like the WWFTP and other services. Then the TMP folder is short for, you can call it the temporary folder. It's just a folder, a directory is created by application and users. Is just to create temporary files. So the directory can house temporary files by any user or application. Normally, in this directory, any user should be able to write because it's just houses temporary files or temporary directories. So any user or application can write to this folder. When we talk about file permissions and stuff, we'll look at who can write to what, who cannot write to what. We'll discuss it better. Then the USR directory is just directory that contains subdirectories with source code, programs, libraries, documentation. So if you check the USR, you can see it also contains directories like bin, include, library, sbin. So just a directory that houses subdirectories with source code, programs, libraries, documentation, and the likes. Then the last one on this diagram is the var directory. The var directory is where administrative files like log files, logs, pool files, and temporary files used by various utilities, where they can be stored. So let's say you have a service run like an Apache service running, for example. It needs to store its logs somewhere, so it can store its logs in the var directory. So the var directory is a directory that contains administrative files like logs. As you can see here, you have the logs cache, you have this pool which is used by printers, and you can also hold some temporary files too. So that's an overview of what each directory stands for. If you have any question, want me to go over any one of them again, kindly indicate via the chats. Then we can continue. So moving on to where we'll be spending most of the time, that's the terminal. We're spending most of our time on the terminal, so it will be a very good idea to get familiar with it. So the terminal is a text interface to the computer. Then it is a program that takes commands from the user, sends it to the operating system for processing, and returns the output. Now, assuming you are using your computer and you are using the GUI, you are clicking around, you use your mouse to click. So basically what you are doing is you are clicking on what is provided to you. You have to click, then the whatever you click, the function calls whatever needs to be called. But from the terminal, you have the access to run commands you want to run by yourself. You have access to send commands to the operating system directly for processing. So on the terminal, you can do a lot of things. You can send your commands, the system processes it and returns the output to you. So the terminal is where all the action and fun takes place. That's where we are going to spend most of our time. In fact, almost all of our time during this session. So we are going to get familiar with the terminal and we'll be using it a lot. So we'll get started right away. I'll be sharing my terminal with us. Please let me know once you can see it. Okay, I'll try to make it bigger. So moving on, this is how the terminal looks like. On the Linux operating system, the default command to open up a terminal is Control plus Alt plus T. So to open up a terminal, you can either go to your application manager and search for terminal and you can open it from there, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Control Alt T and it will give you a terminal similar to this. So now that we have the terminal, let's so as I was saying, this is what the terminal looks like. So today we'll be looking at what we can see on the screen, the what everything we can see here means. Then we'll be discussing the commands much more later. So if you look carefully, I'll try to make it bigger again. On my terminal, you can see something like I have root fish at root fish, then I have this Quizly symbol, and I have the dollar sign. So trying to make sense of this, what this means is that my username, the username I'm running on this terminal currently, the username is rootfish at then the computer name. So my computer name is also rootfish. Then this symbol we have here, I think it's called tilde or yeah, tilde. So this symbol, what it represents is that I'm in my home directory. So we are going to be looking at that very soon. So this symbol, just keep in mind that this symbol, the tilde, means the home directory, the default home directory of that particular user. Then we have this dollar sign. The dollar sign means this user is a non-administrative user. That means this user is a regular user. So to check the difference, I'm going to be doing something so you can check the difference here real quick. So if you can see my screen clearly, you can see that the difference between what we have here and here is now I have roots at rootfish. That means this user is the root user. That's the user I'm logged in now at my computer name. Then I have the same tilde symbol, which is the home directory of the current user. Then now the difference is I have the hash symbol instead of the dollar symbol. Now, the dollar symbol, as I said before, it means that the user is a non-administrative user or non-root user. That means just a regular user. But the hash symbol means the user is a root user or an administrative user. That means the user can run administrative commands. So kindly take note of the difference between these two symbols. Again, I said this dollar sign means the user is a non-administrative user, while the hash symbol means the user is an administrative user. The user can run administrative commands. So we're clearing this out. So again, that's the terminal. Then we'll look at some few things. Now we know we are logged in as this user rootfish, but to confirm we can use the command who am I. So using the who am I command is returns the username of the current user to you. So now I can verify that I'm logged in as a user with username rootfish. Then the terminal, as I said, it is it's a convenient way to run commands. We could be using it a lot to do a lot of things. So we'll just look at the basics now and we'll discuss them as we continue during the session. Can you change your username? Yes, you can change your username. We'll be discussing that. So moving on, we know we are logged in with the user with username rootfish. Now another thing is you want to check the permissions you have. Like another command you can use is the ID command. Now this command is like ID, like short for identity. It shows you the UID, your user ID, which is UID, the GID, which is your group ID. It shows you the groups you belong to, and basically shows you more information, more detailed information about the user you are logged in as. And it can also take some parameters like using ID. If I want to check the permissions that the root user has, I can say ID root and it shows the permission from the root user. So the who am I command shows who you are logged in as currently, and the ID command shows more information about your identity, like the groups you belong to and the likes. I think there's also a command groups. Yeah, the groups command also shows you the groups you belong to. And if you check, you can see that it's similar to the results you have here. Then another thing to talk about is, when we talk about the file system, we said it begins at the slash. So everything begins at the forward slash, which is based on the file system. So one thing we should quickly take note is how to change directory in Linux. So to change directory, the command is just cd, which is short for change directory. So cd, and let's go to the base of the file system. So we'll do cd, then we'll go to this. Now we can do the command ls, which is for listing files, and now we'll compare these results to what we have in the image. So let me try to share that back. This. So going back to this, we can see that now we change directory to the slash, and we can see we have bin, boot, dev, etc, home. We have some directories. So almost all the directories we have here, which are the building blocks of the file system, can be found on your system. So to do that, you just have to change directory to slash, which is the base, and you can do ls to list everything on the base at the base of the file system. So just change directory forward slash, then do ls to show you all the directories that are as the base of the file system. Okay, what is directory? Directory is like the same thing as the folder. If you are coming from a Windows environment, you have folders. Like you can open a folder. So directory is the same thing as a folder. And that's that about the Linux file system, the building blocks of the Linux file system, and that's the terminal. We know we can use the terminal to run commands, send it to the operating system, and it will process it. So starting from tomorrow, following our outline, we'll look at how to navigate the file system in details, how to create files, how to copy files, how to move files around the file system using the terminal. We are going to be looking at that starting from tomorrow. So as I was saying, that's what we'll be looking at today. We have talked about the Linux file system. We have talked about the basic building blocks of the file system. We said the Linux file system uses an hierarchical structure, which is like an upside down tree. We talked about the terminal that can be used to run commands. The commands it accepts commands from the user, sends it to the operating system for processing, and returns the output to us. And also verify that you can see all the directories listed. You can all the directories listed in this image, like we can verify they exist on the system. So can I differentiate between sorry okay, can I differentiate between the two roots? Okay, the thing is the first one we have here, which is root, is like it means it's the root of the file system itself. If you notice, it's just a forward slash. That means it's the root, like the base of the file system. As I was saying, using the example of a normal tree before, let's say you have a tree, then you uproot the tree, turn it upside down. Now, the root of the tree, which is now at the top, is like the base of the tree. The root is the base of the tree because it's inside the ground normally. And turns upside down, that means the root is the base. So the first root we have here, which is just the forward slash, is like the base of the file system. That's where every other directories come out from. So this first root, which is just a forward slash, is the base of the file system itself. Then the slash root is the home account for the root user. So let me quickly demonstrate that on my terminal, maybe to help us to understand better. So now if I go to cd, you can see that now I'm in my home directory. So we'll try to go to slash home. So if you go to slash home and I do ls, I can see that I have the directory which is rootfish, and this directory is my account. So I have a user with username rootfish, and my home account is at home slash rootfish. So as the home directory, I have a directory for my user account. But if you go to slash root, I think I get the permission denied. So let's do this. Okay. Now you can see my current directory is at the root. So now if you notice the difference, if I do ls here, what I get normal files like desktop, documents, downloads. But if I go to just forward slash and I do ls, I can see that you see that we get things like bin, boot, dev, which you can see from the diagram earlier. So this forward slash is the base of the file system, is where every other thing can be found. You can see that from this, you can see the home directory again. You can also see this root directory again. So the forward slash is the base of the file system where every other directory stem out from. Then the slash root is just the home account for the root user. So for normal users, like normal users without administrative privileges, you can see that their accounts can be found in the home directory, but for the root user, the home account is found in the slash root. I don't know if I have answered your question. I think I've answered that. Then another question. Okay, how to change username in Linux. So let's try to do that. So I will exit out of this. Then presently my current username, in- presently my current username is rootfish. So to change that, I think we should discuss this during user management and group management. But to just quickly demonstrate it, I will show us how to do that. So you can use sudo user mod, which is a program for modifying user details. Then you can give it the L, give it, let's say I want to change it to just root, and my old username is rootfish. Okay, let me see, root, root again. So let's exit out of this. Then I will try to do it again. Let's just do user mod. Then L, give it a new name. Let's say with arc. Then the old username is, yeah, I think this is the syntax. Yeah. Now, if I try to log into this again, that user does not exist, but I can log in with root arc. So now you can see that the username has changed from rootfish to root arc. So to change your username, the command is just sudo user mod, which is a program for modifying user details, L, which takes the new username you want to give it. So let's say new username and the old username. That's just it. So we'll be talking more about this when we get to user management and group management. Okay, while we are with questions, so I'll just try to go over what we talked about today again. So we talked about the Linux file system, the basic building blocks. We try to explain what each directory is, like the bin directory houses binary files. We talk about the boot directory and other directories that stems out of the base of the file system. Then we talk about the Linux terminal, and we talk about how to open up a terminal. You can either go to your application manager, open up the terminal, or just use Control Alt T as a shortcut to get your terminal to open. Then we verified the directories we have by doing cd then forward slash to go to the base of the file system. Okay, so that's basically everything we covered today. So I said starting from tomorrow we'll follow our outline So for those just joining, the outline we are following is this. So today we have covered the Linux file system and we have covered the terminal. So we'll continue by looking at how to navigate the file system. We talk about commands. We'll talk about some terminal tips and tricks. Then we'll look at file permissions, how to create files, manage them, how to read file permissions. Then we'll talk about user and group management. Like what TechBoy Pro asks, how to change username is something we are going to look at when we get to user and group management, how to create users, modify users, add users to group, how to delete users. We're going to be looking at that when we get to users and group management. And we'll also talk about the service management and tool installation and some other things. So that's just the outline we'll be following. If you are just joining, we are going to make this recording available as soon as possible so you won't miss out much. I think that will be all. If you have questions, you can quickly go over them now, or we can call it a day. Then we'll continue discussion on the group chat. Okay, I think there are no questions. So that will be all for today's session, guys. Thank you for joining. Then we'll continue our discussion on the group chat. I will continue this session by 8 p.m. tomorrow also. So thank you for joining. Bye.